Imagine a ghost, but not, the kind that haunts an old house or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Imagine a ghost who literally bleeds an entire city dry, but they're doing it from, like, 3,000 miles away.
It's a crazy visual.
It is. And
Mhm.
today, we are going deep into that terrifying space between extreme proximity and impossible distance.
Which is a space that completely redefines how we even understand modern power, really. I mean, we are looking at a man who allegedly functioned as almost like a human algorithm,
Right.
just orchestrating neighborhood executions while, simultaneously smiling for cameras in a professional boxing ring.
Yeah. And so our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize this massive stack of sources we have. We've got forensic timelines, architectural breakdowns, financial
A lot
intelligence,
of financial data, yeah.
tons of it. And we're using all of this to basically chart the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan. Because for you listening, this isn't your standard true crime story about, guys dealing out of the trunk of a car.
No, not at all.
It's this wild exploration of how a local street-level operage evolved into a $20 billion transnational super cartel.
Yeah.
And you might think organized crime only operates in the shadows, like in dark alleys.
Which is the old stereotype. of crime.
Exactly. But our goal today is to show you how modern cartels, they actually operate in the VIP section. They're totally cloaked in the legitimate glamour of professional sports and international finance.
Yeah, and the sheer scale of the cognitive dissonance in these sources it's what makes this so fascinating to me.
Oh, absolutely.
We really have to look at how bureaucratic and, frankly, detached this level of violence becomes when you scale it up globally.
Yeah.
Because to understand how a city can be bled dry from another continent, we have to look at the physical realities of these two entirely disconnected worlds.
Yeah, so let's unpack that. Let's start with World A, which is Dublin's North Inner City. The architectural breakdown of this area in the sources, it's basically a blueprint for vulnerability.
Yes, the architecture of vulnerability.
Right. You're looking at Victorian-era terraced housing, incredibly tight alleyways, and streets where everyone is just packed in together.
There is absolutely zero anonymity there.
None.
It's this highly localized environment where crime is traditionally physical, it's immediate, and the sources paint this really vivid sensory picture of that neighborhood, too.
Yeah, the sounds and the lighting.
Exactly. It's perpetually damp. It's characterized by this, wet hiss of tires on rain-slicked cobblestones. And it has this low, murmuring claustrophobia because the housing is just so tight. I mean, you can literally hear your neighbor breathe through the walls.
It's like an involuntary panopticon.
That's a great way to put it. And visually at night, it's illuminated by that bruised, sickly orange-yellow glow of sodium vapor streetlights.
It just makes every shadow look a little more threatening. And the trauma gets trapped there. Like when Eddie Hutch Sr. was killed outside his home in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
the physical layout ensured that the gunfire echoed endlessly off those brick facades.
The acoustic terror is just contained right there in the streets.
Exactly. The trauma doesn't dissipate, it reverberates through the whole community. But then you contrast that feeling with World B.
Right, Dubai, which is the architecture of total impunity.
It's the absolute opposite of those damp Dublin alleys. Dubai is just this blinding mirror of glass towers and, white yachts.
It has this high albedo glare.
Yes. It's so bright and sterile, it literally erases features and hides the grime underneath. You go from the echoing bricks of Dublin to the frictionless, sterile hum of high-end central air conditioning.
Right, and the dead, sound-absorbent quiet of a luxury penthouse.
Yeah, with massive 360-degree views where absolutely no one can sneak up on you.
And that physical distance, I mean, that is the engine of the entire operation. It allowed the cartel leadership to remain completely insulated from the visceral acoustic reality of the violence they allegedly ordered.
So the blood is spilling on Dublin's cobblestones.
But the spreadsheets tracking those hits are being updated in these pristine marble lobbies in the UAE.
Okay, so it's like playing a deadly game of chess. But one player sealed inside an unassailable climate-controlled sniper tower, and the other player is trapped in a tiny echoing brick maze where, every passing car shadow looks like a hit squad.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that dynamic worked flawlessly for years. I mean, the insulation held up perfectly.
Until it didn't.
Right, until the boundary between those two distinct worlds was violently publicly shattered.
February 5, 2016, the Regency Hotel attack.
The spark.
This is the inciting incident that escalated a local feud into an international crisis. So you have a legitimate boxing weigh-in happening at a Dublin hotel.
Packed with civilians, sports media, cameras flashing everywhere.
Yeah, and suddenly the lobby is breached by a military-grade incursion. The rival Hutch gang had arrived, and they were hunting Daniel Kinahan.
And the tactical breakdown of this event from the sources is chilling because, I mean, this wasn't a standard drive-by shooting.
No, not at all.
It was a highly coordinated paramilitary strike, heavily reliant on psychological warfare.
Yeah, they stormed the building wearing tactical gear that meticulously mimicked the Garda ERU, which is the Irish equivalent of a SWAT team.
Helmets, tactical vests, the whole uniform.
And they were carrying WASR-10s, which are essentially civilian-modified AK-47 variants.
Right, and dressing up as tactical police is meant to trigger automatic civilian compliance.
Right, because if you were sitting in a hotel lobby and you see SWAT officers running in with assault rifles, your instinct isn't to fight.
Exactly, your instinct is to freeze and put your hands up.
And they even had one of the shooters disguised in a blonde wig and women's clothing, right?
Yeah, the wig was a brilliant, albeit terrifying, counter-surveillance measure. It's designed specifically to disrupt eyewitness cognitive processing.
How so?
Well, when human beings are in a high-stressed, traumatic situation, their brains fixate on anomalies. So later, when police interview the terrified witnesses, all they remember is, the shooter with the blonde wig.
Ah, rather than facial features, height, build.
Exactly. The Hutch gang wanted chaos, but they needed it to be completely controlled chaos.
Okay, wait. Here's where it gets really interesting, but also confusing to me.
Okay.
I get the tactical advantage of dressing as police to paralyze the security response.
Yeah.
But they did this in front of dozens of sports journalists with flashing cameras.
Yeah, they did.
Didn't executing a paramilitary strike with AK-47s in front of the press actually guarantee their own downfall? I mean, it basically forced the state to respond to an act of terrorism.
You've hit on the exact pivot point of the entire conflict.
Really?
Yeah. By wearing the uniform of the state and firing military-grade weaponry in a crowded public forum, they shattered the psychological boundary between law enforcement and lawlessness.
It transitioned from a local turf war into something else.
It became an overt challenge to the state's monopoly on violence. A government simply cannot allow an armed militia to impersonate its police force on international television.
Right. It forced the Irish state to respond with overwhelming force, which, as a byproduct, dragged international eyes onto the Kinahan Empire.
And the crazy part is, the entire operation at the Regency ultimately failed because of a tiny, almost primitive detail.
The 1.5-second window.
Yes. A bodyguard for Kinahan threw a simple glass bottle across the room.
Which disrupted the shooter's OD loop. Observe, orient, decide, act.
Right. It's that subconscious cycle the human brain goes through when processing information.
It's like when you're deeply focused on a difficult level in a video game and someone suddenly taps your shoulder.
Yes.
Your brain has to drop everything it was processing, figure out what the tap was, and completely reset its focus.
And that 1.5 seconds of brain reboot for the shooter is all Daniel Kinahan needed to break the line of sight and bolt out a back window.
But cartel lieutenant David Byrne was killed in the lobby instead.
Yeah. And the fallout from Kinahan surviving that attack just totally changed the landscape of European crime. The retaliation from the Kinahan organization wasn't just a standard gang war.
It was a devastating corporate-style retaliation, orchestrated entirely from that sterile Dubai bubble. We were talking about 18 murders over the next few years.
Which really highlights the generational shift in organized crime here. Back in the 1980s, Kinahan's father operated a localized heroin trade in Dublin.
Right, the crime was physical, the trauma was immediate, and contained to specific players.
But under Daniel Kinahan, it transitioned into an abstracted, transnational logistics company.
The bureaucracy of slaughter.
Exactly. The horror lies in how incredibly bureaucratic and emotionally detached the slaughter was. And when you look at the collateral damage, it completely shatters a crucial psychological mechanism called the just world hypothesis.
Right, the subconscious belief that everyday civilians rely on to sleep at night. The idea that bad things only happen to people who engage in bad behavior.
Right. If rival gang members kill each other, society can kind of mentally compartmentalize that violence.
It stays in its lane.
But the cartel weaponized randomness, and that lane completely disappeared. Innocent bystanders started getting killed due to flawed target identification.
Yeah, the sources talk about Martin O'Rourke, a homeless man gunned down in April 2016 because the shooter thought he was someone else.
And Trevor O'Neill, a father on holiday in Majorca, assassinated in front of his family simply because he happened to be wearing similar clothing to a Hutch associate.
It's just brutal. When a father is executed in front of his children in a tourist resort, the public realizes that the cartel's operational radius is limitless.
And the killers are so emotionally detached from the victims, there's no passion in it. To the boardroom in Dubai, Trevor O'Neill wasn't a father. He was just a flawed data point on a hit list spreadsheet.
So what does this all mean for the public? Imagine realizing that you, an ordinary citizen going about your day, are just considered soft tissue occupying the space between a cartel's rifle and their intended target.
It induces a systemic breakdown of civic trust. It's the ultimate feeling of powerlessness.
And making that feeling of impotence so much worse is the grotesque juxtaposition happening at the exact same time. While Dublin is bleeding, Kinahan is co-founding MTK Global.
Oh, the boxing promotion.
Yes. He is managing over 100 professional boxers. He's literally being publicly thanked on Instagram by heavyweight champion Tyson Fury for negotiating massive multi-million-dollar fights in the Middle East.
He's presenting himself as a legitimate sports advisor, rubbing shoulders with royalty and boxing champions, all while law enforcement is tracking the multi-billion-dollar illicit economy he allegedly oversees.
He desperately wanted to operate in the VIP section of global society. But, and this is the turning point, that very visibility, that intense desire for legitimate prestige, it actually provided international law enforcement with the exact map they needed to take him down.
Because if a criminal is insulated in a frictionless Dubai penthouse, completely beyond the reach of traditional police shootouts and local search warrants, how do you actually fight them?
You don't send a SWAT team.
Right.
You send accountants. You fight them with the asymmetric war of global finance.
Which brings us to April 11th, 2022. The U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, designated the Kinahans as a significant transnational criminal organization.
And they placed an unprecedented $15 million bounty on their heads.
Which is huge. They essentially weaponized the U.S. dollar. OFAC stripped Kinahan of his financial invisibility cloak.
They told any global bank, any clearinghouse on Earth, if you process a single transaction for Daniel Kinahan, you will lose your access to the U.S. banking system.
And losing access to the U.S. banking system is a death sentence for any international financial institution. Most global trade relies on the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency.
So if a bank in Dubai or Europe can't clear dollars, they effectively cannot function.
Exactly. So overnight, Kinahan's money became radioactive. Nobody would touch it. It forced the cartel to frantically adapt just to pay their foot soldiers and suppliers.
The sources mentioned they used a highly sophisticated Russian-speaking money laundering network, which European police investigated under the name Operation Destabilize.
They even went so far as buying a bank in Kyrgyzstan to try and create a closed-loop financial system just for their illicit funds.
Buying a bank in Central Asia. I mean, that just shows the sheer desperation of a cartel cut off from the global financial grid.
Oh, totally. They also had to rely heavily on trade-based money laundering and complex smurfing operations.
Let's quickly break down how that actually works for you listening, because it's not just handing over briefcases of cash. Smurfing is when you take a massive amount of illicit cash, say $10 million, and you break it down into thousands of tiny, seemingly insignificant deposits across hundreds of different bank accounts.
Right, to avoid triggering anti-money laundering algorithms. And then trade-based money laundering takes it a step further.
Right.
Instead of moving cash across borders, which is easily tracked, you use the dirty cash to buy legitimate, high-value goods, luxury cars, high-end watches, or even massive shipments of agricultural equipment.
You buy them in one country, ship those goods internationally, and sell them in the destination country for clean, legitimate money.
Yes. And the cartel was funneling incredible amounts of illicit capital right through the legitimate sporting promotions and luxury lifestyles they loved.
But wait, the sources mention a shift to open source intelligence, or OSINT. Is it fair to say that Kinahan's own hubris, all those flashy press conferences and boxing weigh-ins, actually gave law enforcement the exact map they needed to track his legitimate facilitators?
Oh, absolutely. He basically crowdsourced his own financial surveillance.
That's wild.
Investigators weren't just relying on traditional stakeouts or wiretaps anymore. They were mapping his entire network through Instagram tags, public corporate filings for boxing promotions, and photographs from weigh-ins.
So every time someone posted a picture from a VIP table in Dubai, Financial investigators were cross-referencing the individuals at that table, tracking their businesses, and squeezing the money.
Exactly.
Kinahan's hubris was his ultimate vulnerability.
But the financial strangulation, that just laid the groundwork, right? It choked the life out of their day-to-day operations. But to actually put handcuffs on the ghost in Dubai, it required a massive shift in international law and geopolitics. Right, because for a decade, physical distance was his primary armor. The United Arab Emirates historically did not have an extradition treaty with Ireland.
But the geopolitical reality of the world was changing rapidly. The sources note that the Middle East was experiencing increased security vigilance,
Which was driven in large part by fears that transnational criminal networks could exploit instability related to broader conflicts, like the ones involving Iran.
and the UAE wants to be seen as this glittering, legitimate financial hub of the future. They realize that harboring wanted cartel bosses is terrible for global business.
Especially when the U.S. administration is applying immense diplomatic pressure to dismantle these specific transnational networks.
So that geopolitical pressure manifested into concrete legal architecture. In May 2025, a bilateral extradition treaty officially entered into force between Ireland and the UAE.
This wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a fundamental change in the rules of the game, and law enforcement didn't wait long to test it.
No, they used it first on Kinahan's trusted lieutenant, Sean McGovern. They arrested him in Dubai and flew him back to Dublin under heavy military escort.
McGovern's extradition was the proof of concept. It sent an absolute shockwave through the criminal underworld.
It proved that the untouchable sanctuary of Dubai was no longer a safe haven. The legal systems of the world hadn't failed. They had just, taken time to adapt to a new, borderless global reality.
Which brings us to the climax of this entire saga, April 15th, 2026. The swift clinical arrest of Daniel Kinahan in his Dubai sanctuary.
And it wasn't just a couple of local police officers knocking on his door.
No, it was an unprecedented global coalition. You had the Irish Gardaí, the FBI, the DEA, Europol, and the Dubai police all coordinating the strike simultaneously.
When you step back and look at the sheer scale of what they were dismantling, it's staggering. European law enforcement estimated this specific super cartel controlled a full third of Europe's entire cocaine trade.
A third of a continent's supply.
Yeah. And we saw the physical evidence of that operational scale with the MV Matthew bust, right? Where 2.2 tons of cocaine were intercepted at sea.
And that massive shipment was being coordinated and directed right from a laptop in Dubai.
But despite the billions of dollars, the global shipments, and the trail of bodies across Europe, Kinahan faces a single, highly specific charge in Ireland's non-jury special criminal court.
Directing a criminal organization.
Yeah. It's like they couldn't get him for the 18 individual fires he allegedly started, so they charged him with owning the match factory instead.
That's a really good analogy.
Just one charge, but it carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. And the use of the special criminal court is key here, right? Because it's a non-jury court.
It is a vital strategic prosecutorial decision. The Special Criminal Court was designed specifically to prevent the jury intimidation tactics that are standard operating procedure for organizations of this size. By focusing on the overarching charge of directing the organization rather than individual murders, the prosecution can bring in a massive sweep of encrypted phone data, financial records, and international intelligence.
Without getting bogged down in trying to prove who pulled the trigger in every single localized offense.
Exactly. The systems didn't fail, they adapted. Distance is no longer the absolute protection it once was.
The evolution of how we pursue these figures is just incredible. I mean, we started this deep dive on the damp, traumatized cobblestones of Dublin's inner city, where the violence was intimate, acoustic, and devastating.
And we followed the money and the blood to the glaring, overexposed glass penthouses of Dubai.
We explored how a local grifter evolved into a massive transnational CEO, orchestrating terror through a corporate structure thousands of miles away.
And how international governments had to completely weaponize global finance, trace the digital footprints of the cartel's own hubris, and rewrite international treaties to finally bridge that impossible distance.
So for you listening, the next time you watch a massive global sporting event or look at the gleaming skyline of an international tax haven, remember the invisible, often bloody economies that might be quietly propping them up.
Modern organized crime isn't hiding in an alleyway.
No, it's sitting right there in the VIP lounge, sipping crystal, completely detached from the visceral consequences of its own ledger.
But I want to leave you with one final chilling question to mull over. Daniel Kinahan was a logistical algorithm, acting as the CEO of a $20 billion illicit corporation.
Right.
But when you arrest the CEO of a massive multinational corporation, the corporation rarely folds. The infrastructure is still there. The demand for the product hasn't changed.
Wow.
So it begs the question, is the algorithm now self-sustaining? Have we actually dismantled the machine, or will the board of directors just elect a new head?